Have you ever stopped to think about why the United States has been involved in the Middle East for over 80 years, with no end in sight, and how this affects you directly, perhaps through the prices you pay at the pump or the news you watch every night? It's a question that gets to the heart of America's role in the world and its impact on your daily life. Are you tired of feeling like you're just a bystander, watching as the U.S. gets entangled in one conflict after another, without any clear sense of purpose or resolution? The truth is, most of us can't help but feel a sense of frustration and confusion when we see the U.S. getting involved in yet another Middle Eastern conflict. Whether it's a war in Iraq, a drone strike in Yemen, or a diplomatic crisis with Iran, and wondering how this will affect the economy, our jobs, and our loved ones. We see the headlines, the images of devastation, and the human cost, and we can't help but think, what's the point of all this? And how does it affect me, my family, and my community? For example, think about the family who has to pay more for gasoline because of the latest sanctions on Iran, or the small business owner who struggles to stay afloat due to the economic instability caused by the conflicts. The U.S. involvement in the Middle East is a complex and multifaceted issue, with roots that stretch back to the early 20th century. To understand why the U.S. has been involved in the region for so long, we need to look at the historical context, the strategic interests, and the ideological motivations that have driven American policy. It all started with the discovery of oil in the region, particularly in Saudi Arabia in the 1930s. The U.S., which was then emerging as a global superpower, saw the strategic importance of the Middle East and its vast oil reserves, and began to take a more active role in the region. The U.S. government and corporations worked together to secure access to the oil and to protect American interests in the region. This marked the beginning of a long and complex relationship between the U.S. and the Middle East, one that would be shaped by geopolitics, ideology, and economics. Over the years, the U.S. has been involved in numerous conflicts, interventions, and diplomatic efforts in the region. From the Iranian coup in 1953 to the Gulf War in 1991, and more recently, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Each of these conflicts has had its own unique circumstances and motivations, but they all reflect a deeper pattern of American involvement in the region. One of the key factors that has driven U.S. involvement in the Middle East is the desire to protect American interests, particularly when it comes to oil. The region is home to some of the largest oil reserves in the world, and the U.S. has long been dependent on imported oil to fuel its economy. The U.S. government has seen it as essential to secure access to this oil, and to prevent other powers, such as the Soviet Union or Iran, from gaining control over the region. This has led to a series of interventions and conflicts, as the U.S. has sought to protect its interests and maintain its influence in the region. Another factor that has driven U.S. involvement in the Middle East is ideology. The U.S. has long seen itself as a champion of democracy and freedom, and has sought to promote these values in the region. This has led to efforts to support democratic movements and to intervene in conflicts where human rights are at stake. However, this ideology has often been complicated by the reality on the ground, where the U.S. has found itself supporting authoritarian regimes, or intervening in conflicts where the lines between good and evil are not always clear-cut. The U.S. involvement in the Middle East has also been shaped by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The U.S. has long been a strong supporter of Israel and has seen the country as a key ally in the region. This has led to tensions with Arab states, who have seen the U.S. as biased towards Israel, and has contributed to the ongoing conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. The conflict has been a major point of contention in the region, and has drawn in other powers, such as Iran and Saudi Arabia. The U.S. has sought to broker a peace agreement between the two sides, but so far, a lasting resolution has eluded the region. Despite the many challenges and complexities of the region, the U.S. remains committed to its involvement in the Middle East. The region is seen as critical to American interests, and the U.S. continues to maintain a significant military presence in the region. In conclusion, the U.S. involvement in the Middle East is a complex and multifaceted issue, driven by a range of factors, including strategic interests, ideological motivations, and historical context. As we look to the future, it's clear that the U.S. will continue to play a major role in the region, and that the consequences of this involvement will be far-reaching, affecting not just the people of the Middle East, but also Americans back home. So the next time you fill up your tank or watch the news, Remember that the U.S. involvement in the Middle East is not just a distant issue, but one that affects us all, and ask yourself, what does the future hold for this complex and troubled region?